everyone, it's Caitlin from Really Big Plant. Thank you so much for joining me.
Really Big Plant.
So for this video, we are doing a whole bunch of plant chores. I've got a lot of things that I want to do today. I need to move around some of my big plants and clean some stuff up. I want to repot some plants. I've been trying to consolidate because I have way too many plants in here. The last time I counted, I had over 300 plants, but I've been trying to do more consolidating plants together to create fewer total plants. So forging on ahead with that today, I've got some plants that I want to repot together. And I also want to continue wrestling with my giant monstera over there. I started the process of trying to get it to rotate, and some stuff has happened with it. It hasn't been going quite as planned, but I want to just try to rearrange some things. I've been kind of busy recently and my plant clutter has gotten out of control in my apartment, so I really need to just clean some stuff up. If you've been watching my channel, one of the things that happened recently is that one of my largest plants, my philodendron giganteum, recently fell from a top shelf and no longer fits where it was living before. And now I've got this situation over in my main plant area over by my windows where my philodendron giganteum is blocking my access to everything over there. And it's making it really hard for me to do my normal plant care. And as a result, I've just been kind of not doing my best with my plants. So I want to try to rearrange so that I can figure out how to access some of my plants in that area and make it a little bit easier for me to water them. And I'm going to show you some updates on some of my plants and then do some repottings, and yeah, just got a whole bunch of things I want to do today. So let's get into it. So it's looking completely insano over here, in my opinion. This big thing behind me here is my philodendron giganteum. It's kind of at a weird angle because the front of the plant is facing that way right now. But basically what I've been doing is I've been moving this giganteum side to side from over here to right over there in order to access different plants in different parts of my apartment. And one of the questions that I get in the comments a lot is, how do you have room for all of your plants? And the answer is I don't. I do not have the room for these, and I really need to rearrange. I need to reclaim some of my space. So what happened was I recently was trying to rearrange my monstera and get it to turn a little bit. I've got a yellow leaf on there. I'm gonna need to prune that off too. But I forgot that the base that the monstera is on is actually 2 feet away from the wall right now. So I was waiting for the monstera to turn a little bit so that I could push the whole thing back in towards the wall, and I think that's gonna open up a lot of space over here. And I somehow just didn't even realize how much extra space there was behind that plant. I just got used to it taking up the whole room. In a 14 or 16 inch pot, and I need to water it every couple of days. It's really droopy, and I feel like I almost can't overwater this plant. I just dump huge amounts of water in there, and the soil is always dry. So it really needs a repotting, but I'm hoping to move this year. And one of the things I've been thinking about a lot is obviously my huge plant collection and how I'm going to move this collection somewhere else. For that reason, I have been not repotting my plants. This monstera, I don't want to repot it quite yet because I don't want it to have a huge growth increase because I don't even know how I'm going to get it out my door. When I first brought this plant home, it was a struggle to get it into the door frame. And now it's grown a lot, and I already know that it's gonna be a struggle, and I don't wanna have to cut it up. So that's just my ramble about this plant. That's what's going on with this big Monstera deliciosa. But anyway, I wanna move some things around and see if I can push this back towards the wall a little bit more. This is my alocasia lauterbachiana that was from Okay, so this alocasia had spider mites and I just bumped it into my big monstera, so I just wiped that leaf down with a little bit of neem oil. I don't think it has spider mites anymore. I treated it, but I really don't want my huge monstera to get spider mites because that would really be a pain. So just took some emergency action. But yeah, I had been keeping this out in the middle of the floor space over there. I've just been trying to social distance it while simultaneously giving it the light it needs. But yeah, the newest leaf came out without a leaf. like it grew a stem and there was just nothing on the tip of the leaf, but it looks like something else is gonna grow out of here now, but that's kind of a mystery, so we'll see what happens with this. So this was a leaf that was pretty close to the wall. It was like in the darkest spot for this plant, and whenever I've rotated this plant, the leaves that touch the wall back there always tend to die off first. This is actually something I should talk about. I've got bright windows right over there and bright windows right behind me, and right here, I don't know if you can see the shape from like the ceiling maybe, there's like a little bit of a nook right here that isn't directly in front of a window. It's kind of around the corner from all of the windows, and it's pretty dark right there. And I think a lot of people like to put plants in a spot like that and think it's really bright, especially if it's in between windows. But in a situation like this, it can actually be a totally deceptively dark spot when you have a corner like that. So just be aware that sometimes, even in your most brightly lit areas, it's still possible to have spaces that are like gonna eat up the light, like a corner in between windows. And I've noticed that on this monstera, the monstera can really tell the difference between the leaves that are out in the middle of the room and the leaves that are up against the wall. The leaves that are close to the wall tend to be the ones that die off first. Oh gosh, my monstera's aerial roots have fully grown back with a vengeance, and they are growing into my philodendron patriciae over here. I should show you my patriciae. This is my philodendron patriciae. I got this at the San Francisco Pacific Orchid Expo, Orchid Show, and Equigenera had a pop-up there, and I found this patriciae and I was so excited about it. So this is the leaf that was developing when I first got the plant. There was like a new leaf that was in the process of coming out, and this is a brand new leaf that is just unfurling now, so that's really exciting. They're not quite as large as the largest leaf that was on this plant when I got it. They're actually considerably smaller, but they're still pretty big, and I'm just loving this plant. It's awesome. Oh, and my Hoya monstera over here, which I recently added to a pole, is finally growing a fenestration, but it needs a new pole again, so that's gonna have to happen soon. Okay, so this plant is leaning to the side, so actually I don't really think that I can turn it because those leaves are gonna get totally squished against the wall and will die off. So, I don't know what to do. Okay, well, that was useless. I basically just put it exactly back where it was, just pushed it back, which I could have done from the get-go. There's a leaf back there that I can tell has done a lot to try to find the light because the petiole is really twisted up, but that leaf is gonna die off next probably. Then for that leaf that's yellowing, I think it's yellowing because of an underwatering thing. This plant has just been getting pretty dehydrated on a regular basis because I refuse to repot it. I actually was thinking about maybe adding some of those moisture crystals into the soil, which is not something I have any experience with. giganteum. I really need more space. I don't want to chop it back though because it's so big and impressive now, but I don't know what to do. I'm starting to feel like my plants are owning me instead of me owning the plants. I've been joking about that for a while, but now I just don't know what to do. Thankfully, I don't have any furniture over here. I've like devoted this space fully to plants. My Hoya wayetii, the variegated one that was a rescue, is finally starting to put out some new growth. You can see like this little red leaf. Sorry, this light is not ideal to show you stuff right now, but yeah, this is finally starting to grow in a few little places. So that's really exciting. It's only on like 1 or 2 of the vines, but you can see there's some little new growth right here. See that? I went out and got a pot for my really big snake plant, my new one that I got that I asked you guys to help me name, which by the way, I have not decided on a name yet. Like there's so many good suggestions and I'm extremely indecisive, so I haven't chosen yet, but I will announce when I eventually do choose. But I went out and got a pot for that snake plant. It is massive and extremely heavy and hopefully heavy enough to be able to stop that plant from falling over. Heaviest pot of all time. This pot would hold the snake plant down in a tornado. I hold down the whole apartment in a tornado. I ordered a rolling stand for it so that I can actually move it. So I'm going to open this up and see. I was just reminded because I was struggling with the giganteum and I probably should get a little rolling stand that goes underneath that too so that I can continue just moving it back and forth without feeling like I'm getting in such a workout every time. Although I guess that's not a super bad thing. Okay, I don't think that this is going to be heavy duty enough for the snake plant. Let's go check the size. I've just had the big pot I bought out here in the hallway outside my apartment because it's just so big. I don't think anyone's going to take it because it's actually so heavy. But this is the stand that I got for it that has wheels, and I don't think this is going to be big enough or sturdy enough. This is a flimsy piece of plastic, so let's see if this pot's even going to fit on here. Okay, so that didn't work. I thought that I could at least lift the pot onto this tray and see if it was gonna be the right size, and then somehow miraculously lift this snake plant into that pot. And I don't know what made me think that I suddenly was going to develop the Hulk strength to lift everything, but I was just full of confidence, completely full of confidence that I was going to be able to just one time lift that big pot and lift this big snake plant, but I can't actually lift either of these objects, so I'm gonna have to wait for later to do that. Okay, that did not go as planned, and now I'm super sweaty from trying to lift that pot. I really need to get to the gym. I thought that I was gonna be able to rearrange some more stuff over there because I wanted to put that snake plant onto a tray and move around some more furniture, but I think it's gonna have to wait till I order a new tray. I don't think that it's going to be heavy duty enough for my snake plant because I think the total package of the pot that I bought plus the snake plant itself is going to be over 100 pounds. I feel so weak saying that. Like I can lift 100 pounds. It's just I don't have the grip strength in my fingers to lift it up. So I don't know. I'm getting defensive. I'm not that strong, I guess. Maybe I'll see if that tray will go under the giganteum. Let's see. Okay, well, it's not the best, but I think it's easier for myself to move around now, so I think I'll keep that tray. It's not the sturdiest. I probably wouldn't buy it again, but it wasn't that expensive, so I think I'll keep it. The sun just started to come into my apartment, and it is hot over there in combination with trying to lift that plant. Okay. I just got super hungry. I'm so out of shape when I tried to pick up 2 plants and I'm like sweating and like dying of hunger. These pretzels are making me thirsty. The other thing I want to show you is a snake plant situation. Let's talk about this snake plant and see what I can do to try to save it. So this is a sansevieria kirkii silver blue, and it is it's turned into like a 2-dimensional plant because it's so dehydrated that it's just gone flat. Do you see this? It's like a flounder. But yeah, this plant is severely dehydrated and I can't get it to bounce back. I've been watering it all the time and I just haven't been sure what to do about this to try to get it to come back. When I showed this in my all my snake plants video, it was looking pretty dehydrated, but it wasn't quite this bad. But it hasn't grown at all since the last time you saw this plant, if you did watch that video. And it's just gotten worse. So I think what I want to do is pop it into water. And I wasn't actually sure about doing that. I've heard people say that they keep their snake plants in water and they grow really well. And I've seen pictures of it and stuff, but for some reason, I've always felt really hesitant to put a snake plant into water. So I've propagated a lot of snake plants and I almost always do it as water propagation. So I know that it's possible for snake plants to live in water, but I had never actually transitioned a full plant that had already grown multiple leaves from soil into water. But I have this snake plant that I want to show you. This is starfish sansevieria. And I've got it in kind of an interesting setup here. I actually have it propagating in water. So this is a plant that, well, I call this my toilet sansevieria because when I first started working at the current plant shop I'm working in now, this plant was struggling and was for some reason living in the bathroom. And on one of my first days working there, I accidentally knocked this plant into the toilet. And not only is that gross, but when the plant fell into the toilet, I also saw that it had absolutely no roots. It came right out of its pot. The pot stayed put full of dirt, and this piece just came flying out. It was just like a tiny little nub. So I washed it with soap and water, and I just brought it home because no one wants a toilet plant, especially an unrooted one. So I decided that it was the perfect opportunity to try to experiment, and I stuck it directly into a little vase of water. So the setup I've got it in now is pretty cool, if I do say so myself. This is the top of a little terrarium. If you watch my carnivorous plant chores video, this was the terrarium that I put my Venus flytrap in initially, and I have since taken it out of its little enclosure, but it's still planted into the bottom half of this terrarium. So I just had this lid that I didn't know what to do with. And when I tried to put this snake plant into a cup of water, because it just had a little nub, I couldn't get it to stand up without falling over. So I kind of put together this hack solution where I stuck the snake plant nub through the hole in the top of this terrarium piece and have it sitting in a glass of water that is underneath the top of the container. And I think it looks really cool. This is like one of the coolest plant sculpture things that I've got going on in my apartment right now. But on top of it, this plant is growing. It's not rotting and it's growing, and it makes me feel really confident that the snake plant can handle growing in water. This has been in this glass of water now for like many months, and it only recently actually started growing. Like, it grew out a full root system and just sat here for a while, and I was kind of thinking like, okay, here it comes, it's rotting, it's dying, they don't want to be in water. But actually it started to grow and it's adjusted to it. So I don't know how this plant would acclimate back into soil now, but at some point I probably will plant it back into soil. Actually, you know, maybe I'll just leave this one in water. Maybe this will be my water snake plant. We'll see what happens with this if I just keep it in here. Okay, that's what I'm doing. But the reason why I'm talking about that is because I've got this plant and it's struggling. So I want to take it out of this soil and I just want to put it directly into water and see if that improves this situation. Some various vessels. Okay, So. Okay, so these look like roots, but they feel totally hollow to me. But sometimes snake plant roots can be kind of weird and also oddly resilient to being totally dried out. So I'm not gonna cut these off before I stick this into water. I'm just gonna go rinse it real quick. Okay, so I'm just gonna let this sit in here. Oops. Okay. Everything appears to be okay. All right. Mini heart attack just now. Not gonna hold this up again. I'll hold it with 2 hands. I put it in here. The water level is pretty shallow. I'm definitely not letting the water go above the level of where the leaves, the crease in the leaves are, because the leaves form these little vessels that could hold a lot of water and would potentially rot. I think also I could have just repotted it. I think it was probably a bad move from the beginning to keep this in such a small pot, but when I first got it, because it had so few roots, it seemed to make sense to me to put it into something tiny and just keep watering it all the time. But I think in a pot that small, especially because it was a terracotta one, this plant was needing water like every day. So I think that this should actually be able to maintain it, hopefully, and hopefully I'll get some new growth on here. The other thing I should say about this is that I would not recommend transferring a snake plant into water if you're suspecting any kind of rot. Like if the plant down here is mushy in any way or feels squishy, or the leaves are yellowing and getting really kind of like floppy and seeming rotten rather than super dehydrated, I would not recommend putting it into water, because then you might really run into overwatering / root rot kind of situation. But I think what's going on with my snake plant is just that it is severely dehydrated, and now we'll finally be able to get a drink. Let's talk about my philodendron gloriosum. I repotted this plant like a week ago, and it took a turn for the worse immediately. Like the next day it started to look really bad, and so I took it out of soil and I just put it straight into water because it doesn't really have anything going on, but it does have a couple of new roots that I can tell are active, so hopefully this should be able to make a recovery. I was laughing at myself taking it out of the pot because in my last video I was talking about how you just really need to be patient when you're trying to troubleshoot with plants and not make tons of changes all at once. And not only did I repot this, but I repotted it a second time into soil, which I showed in that video, and then I even took it out and I put it into water. So I'm not even following my own advice. I made lots of changes all at once. I think that this called for it because this leaf started to yellow so dramatically, like it's gonna be gone in a day or two. So I wanted to make some change because the plant was telling me that things were going really badly, so I needed to take some action. But I guess I wanted to just amend what I'd been saying about being patient. If you notice that everything is falling apart and things are getting worse and worse and it's happening faster and faster, you absolutely can take some action on your plants. You don't need to try to wait until it's totally dead. So that's what I'm doing with this one now, and I thought I would just update you on what's going on with this. So I've got all these Christmas cacti, and they're all different. They all have a slightly different variety of flower, and I kept them all separate from each other because they make different flowers, but I just decided that I think I want to pot them all together. I've had these plants for about a year and a half now. They were a present, they were a birthday present from my uncle, and they were all in flower when they arrived, and they were beautiful. 6 different varieties, and they were all making beautiful different flowers. But there was one variety, which unfortunately was my favorite, light pink pretty one, that died off really soon after the flowers died. I'm not sure what happened to it, but It was already like the smallest plant out of the whole group, and I think there was just something a little bit wrong with it. It always looked a little bit sickly, and it died off pretty quick, so that was sad. But I do have all of these different varieties here. This is the Schlumbergera Thorbrit. This is the Modesto, Coral Red, Christmas Fantasy, and Kristen. So anyway, I got all of these and I wanted to keep them separate because they all bloom different colored flowers. And I actually decided that I think I want to pot them all together. And when they eventually do bloom, it'll be a really fun surprise to see which flowers appear. So I was feeling really like indecisive. I'm just gonna keep all of the tags and I'll be able to look up the names and compare to photos online and see which ones are blooming. I'm just taking out all the plant tags. Oh gosh, point of no return. Okay. So yeah, I feel great about this Christmas cactus now. I think that this is gonna do better in my care because I like it more now. Now it's like a big impressive plant instead of 5 struggling plants in nursery pots. So I'm really liking this in here, and hopefully this plant is gonna be with me for a very long time. So I can't wait for this to hopefully grow some flowers. Yeah. Okay, and then I want to repot these philodendron birkins together. So I have these 2 birkins, and these are really amazing plants. They are hybridized from the philodendron Congo rojo, the red Congo philodendron, and they've just got this beautiful white striping pattern. And the birkins were really expensive and hard to come by for a while. They were like, I think like right at the beginning of the pandemic, they were very hard to find. They were really expensive and you could only get them online. Now I've started seeing the biggest specimens I've ever seen coming into the plant shop. There are these 6-inch and 8-inch pots of philodendron birkin that will have like 10, 12 individual plants all packed into the pot with just amazing looking bushes. I'm sorry I don't have a photo to show you. I feel like when we get those in, they sell like immediately. The philodendron birkin can just look so beautiful as it gets bigger. It does really well as an indoor house plant, and it's relatively easy to maintain because it's a clumping philodendron that grows from a central point rather than a vining philodendron where it grows into a very long vine. I mean, this one I've had for a while now. This was the first birkin I got, I'm pretty sure, and it went through a period of severe neglect and it lost a lot of its leaves, but now it's growing back a lot and it's looking kind of wonky, but it took years for it to stretch out this much. So they're a pretty compact growing plant as far as a lot of these aroids go that have gotten so popular these days. But anyway, yeah, I do have 2 of these now. I don't remember why I got this second one, but I want to pot them together. So let's just do it. So I've got this fiberglass pot and a plastic nursery pot that's a 6-inch one that just fits right perfectly into the top. Hey, baby. Ooh. These philodendron birkins have orange roots. It's so cool. It's weird, these two are in totally different soil mixes and their roots look really different. I'm weirded out at how different the roots look. This one has bright white roots and this one has orange roots. I don't know if that's because one of them is less healthy, like maybe the one with orange roots is less healthy, or maybe it's what happens over time. Actually, yeah, these roots feel kind of woody, as opposed to these feel kind of fleshy. I've had this plant for a lot longer than this birkin. I can't remember when I got this, but I think it was kind of more recently. I know that this was a birkin that I got when they were pretty expensive back in the day, and it was really small. And yeah, I don't know if maybe it's just that the older roots eventually start to turn kind of woody. That's really interesting. Huh. Okay, so that's really fascinating. I think it could just be that these roots are a little bit healthier. I see that the main root on here, the big thick one, is a little bit orangey, so that would lend itself to my theory that the orange color is a result of the roots sort of hardening off and of age. And maybe the main stem on here, on this one's roots, is starting to exhibit signs of that orange color first. Anyway, that's really cool. So, plants are so interesting. You know, we talk so much about the diversity of people from one person to another, and we in some ways forget about diversity, I think, when we look at plant species. And I've noticed this big time with your average plant store customer who comes in and complains about their plant not looking exactly like a photo, someone else's photo of the same plant they saw. And my answer is always, well, it's because your plant's a different plant. I don't know what else to tell you. It's unique and it's got its own vibe and it's not the one in the picture. I think it's something that we forget, that the diversity of plants, even plants of the same species from individual to individual, can be quite varied. I'm being kind of rough on these roots and breaking them up because they can handle it. I feel like this is a plant that just can handle a lot. I've never really seen a bad looking philodendron birkin. Working in plant shops and seeing a lot of philodendron birkins come through, I've never had a problematic birkin, I don't think. I hope I didn't just jinx it by saying that, but I've never seen one with an issue. I think this birkin, my original one, its growth has been pretty stunted by having never been repotted. I probably should have repotted it ages ago, but it's also fine. It just hasn't grown too much, and that's okay. So I don't really mind it when my plants grow really slowly, because having so many of them makes it a little bit easier if they grow slow, actually. I need a bigger pot. This is gonna be awesome, I can tell. Okay, this is awesome. So I'm gonna just stick it in here. Yay! I feel like this looks great now. The white pot really brings out the white lines in the birkin, and it just looks beautiful. And I feel like combining it into one big plant was totally the move. So, hooray! And the last thing I want to do now is prune up this Saxifraga stolonifera. So this is, what do they call these? A strawberry begonia is the common name for this, but they are neither strawberries nor begonias. Stolonifera, the species name of this plant, refers to the stolons that they make. And stolons are a type of runner, like these, and then it grows a plant somewhere else. And usually the stolons run along the ground and they sort of spread and find a new place to grow another plant and to take root. And eventually a whole new plant will grow at the end of the stolon, like this little guy over here, and you can separate it off and plant it as its own plant. So this plant isn't a super great example of a strawberry begonia. I bought this, I don't know, not too long ago from the plant shop I work in. This was a plant that got relegated to a very low light spot in the shop, and then I think it got kind of overwatered. I noticed for several weeks in a row, it just seemed to be declining, and it was always very moist. So I don't really know what happened to this plant, but I decided that I was gonna buy it and bring it home. It didn't cost too much. Now I wanna do a little bit of pruning because I think it started to recover finally, and it's ready to be cut up a little bit. I got it. Oh, okay, I think that millipede must have come out of this plant, right? Because where else could that have come from? Okay, I'm so hot now. I just got so scared. It's like spontaneous whack-a-mole, just going after random millipedes. Total adrenaline rush. Okay, so anyway, I pruned this up. Hopefully there aren't more millipedes in here. What was I saying? I just got so distracted and scared of that bug. Oh, okay, yeah, so I just pruned this up. I think it's looking a lot better now, but the stolons are looking a little bit messy. I think one of them was on here and I didn't actually think that it was gonna grow a plant. It was already kind of like crimped up at the top when I brought it home, and it did miraculously sprout an entire little baby over here. This little vine is doing a little bit better, but not much, and I noticed that there's like a fatal looking crimp in the vine up here, so I'm gonna just go ahead and cut these off and propagate these little babies. They're a little bit smaller than I normally would like them to be before propagating them, but I think they're gonna die anyway, so I'm gonna go ahead and just cut them off. So these little plantlets can be kind of hard to figure out what to do with because the leaves kind of grow in every direction, and in order to plant these, you need the middle part where the node is, or the center point, to be touching something moist. So I'll show you what I'm gonna do. Like this one, for example, is really upside down. Like, since they hang, the leaves kind of start to grow in every direction, and the fronts of the leaves are facing this way, but the new leaf is coming out over here, and the bottom of this piece is all the way down there under the leaves. So it can be kind of hard to figure out how to get these into soil without destroying them. Got a little pot of dirt here, and I'm gonna try to just put these on the soil. So there's the end right here that was the stolon. This is the end I just cut that was like the umbilical cord attaching the little baby to the plant, and I left it a little bit longer so that I could stick that part into the soil. I don't know if these are able to drink water from that little stolon, kind of like a cut flower once you cut it, but I figured if anything I can use it to try to just anchor the bottom into the soil a little bit. This one I'm gonna try to do the same. It's so hard to get these into the dirt. Maybe I need to tie them. All right, I feel like that was a really good idea. I'm gonna pat myself on the back for that one. Yeah, necessity is the mother of invention, and I think this is probably the move. I mean, we'll see if this works and if these are able to root out, but in the past, I've always just struggled and just felt like it's really hard to get these to root because it's hard to get the little growth point to stay in contact with the soil, and I don't know why I've never thought to just tie them down before. I know that there's like a bobby pin method that you can use to hold plants in with a bobby pin, but these are kind of fragile. They're kind of like a begonia where the stems are juicy and breakable, so I think a bobby pin would probably destroy a plant like this if you tried to use one. I mean, maybe you could loosen it up a lot and stick it in there, but I think this should work too. So the only thing that I am gonna watch out for is if I set this in a tray of water, this is a cotton string which will act like a wick, and it could potentially put too much water on the surface of the plant where it's touching it. I don't really think that's gonna be an issue because I don't intend on having this sitting in tons of water all the time, but that is something that just occurred to me that I should probably watch out for. All right, you guys, so that is it for today's video. I feel really good about resituating some of these plants, and I always feel really happy to put plants into a better aesthetic situation because I think that it makes me like them more and I care for them more, especially with plants that I start to neglect. Giving it a new pot just feels like such a refresh that I usually am invigorated or reinvigorated to be interested in that plant again. So I would love to hear from you on what some of the plant projects you are working on these days, or what you thought about any of these plants in my collection, what you think about Christmas cacti, if you are personally a fan of these or if you don't really care for them. I'm kind of curious about that because I feel like I never really hear people talk about this plant too much. It is considered kind of a holiday plant, and I know people have pretty mixed feelings about it, but I can already tell that I'm going to love this plant now that I repotted it, and I'm kind of like waiting with curiosity, and it's become a mystery now, like a Kinder egg. I don't know which flower is going to bloom first, so I know that it's actually going to really increase the excitement for me, not knowing what is going to come out of this plant. Oh, I stuck these tags back in here. I know that I'm gonna be really excited about this when it eventually does make some flower buds. So yeah, I really hope that you enjoyed this video, and I hope that you are having a fantastic week, and I just want to say thank you so much for watching, and I hope that your plants are bringing you joy, and I hope to catch you in the next one. Bye.